The Fire is the 4th episode of the 2nd season of The Office, and I thought this one was not too bad. It's not my favourite, but there were definitely some good moments, and I didn't see some of it coming, which was quite fun. So there will, of course, be spoilers from now as I go through the episode chronologically and share some thoughts. We establish at the beginning that Jim is dating Katy. This is Amy Adams' character, who appeared, I think, quite a while ago now. It might have even been the previous season, but correct me if I'm wrong on that. And Michael is then evaluating Rainn, who is the temp, and then the fire alarm goes off, and I don't know why I found this so funny, but Dwight is in charge, or trying to be in charge of the situation, trying to get everybody out, and when he shouted, "This is a paper company, people," I just burst out laughing. I don't know why I found that so funny, but I did. And then Michael actually made a valid point, which is not that usual for Michael. He pointed out that, yes, he did leave the building first, and that usually it's women and children, but A, they don't employ children, and B, women are equal in the workplace, so it wouldn't be fair. I think he said he'd have a lawsuit on his hands if he told women to go first, which I have to say is a pretty valid point. I'm not of the belief that it should be women and children first. I think it's everybody get out at the same time. And obviously, don't rush, but I think he had a pretty valid point. And then they're all kind of standing around in the car park. The fire engine pulls up at one point. They're all playing games to pass the time, just kind of casual conversation. And they played an interesting game where you have to name the 5 films you would take with you to a desert island. Presumably you've got a portable DVD player. You can take 5 DVDs of your choosing. I think they did specify films. And I'd love to know what your 5 would be. I assume mine would be my top 5 all-time favourite films, which would include Sweeney Todd, Dead Poets Society, It Takes Two, Toothless, and number 5 is pending. I'm not 100% sure which would get that 5th position, but if you have a top 5, I'd love to know. But my real answer, if it's just DVDs, would be, can I take 5 sitcom box sets? Because that would be much more appealing. But I enjoyed listening to the conversations about films, and that made me very happy. Rainn is then, at Michael's prompting, quizzing Michael about business. Doesn't really go well for Michael, as it turns out he doesn't know very much about the world of business at the moment. But to Michael's credit, he didn't try and pretend, well, he did kind of pretend there were reasons why he didn't know as much, but he also praised Rainn for being intelligent, and it was a nice moment. He didn't try and undermine him or anything, which I thought was very admirable of him. And he is very happy with Rainn. Dwight, on the other hand, isn't. Dwight decides to go and sit in his car and blast out "Everybody Hurts." And I have to say, it was a really beautiful moment where he immediately starts doing that, and without hesitating, Jim went straight up to him to find out what was wrong with him. And this is not the relationship I was expecting between the two of them. This is obviously the first time I'm watching the show, so I've got no idea what it's like going forward, but certainly at the beginning of the previous season, it seemed like Jim would take any opportunity to wind up Dwight. And that probably still is the case, but I also feel like Jim cares for Dwight or respects him. There's definitely some kind of positive feeling there. Or maybe Jim is just genuinely a really good person who has compassion and doesn't want to see anybody hurting. I don't know. But I think it was really lovely that he went straight to him, and Pam went up with Jim. And then the mood shifted because, unfortunately, Roy arrived. And honestly, I don't like the character. I don't think he's meant to be likeable, but you could feel the shift in the mood when he arrived. It was like the fun had to stop. And it was not pleasant. It really wasn't pleasant. And then things get a little bit tense as Dwight overhears Michael saying he wished he had his cell phone, but he left it in the building. Credit to Michael for not going back and getting things. He just left. I feel like most of us would try and get our phones. And Dwight saw the opportunity to make Michael happy and to try and make himself look better than Rainn, because Ryan's getting all of Michael's attention, and Dwight goes back into the building. Not a smart decision, even with the fire brigade there. But Michael did learn something, because he came out a little while later, and he was so happy because he'd found the source of the fire. it was Ryan's fault. I didn't see that coming. Maybe it's predictable. With hindsight, I can see them really bigging up Ryan and really setting him up as this brilliant character who's really knowledgeable and eager to learn. And then he nearly burnt down the building because he had a pizza thing on oven setting rather than on toaster setting. And it just goes to show that you can be book smart, but you might lack in common sense. I don't actually think Ryan lacks in common sense. I think he's probably been under Mifflin for not very long, and it might have been his first time using this particular toaster oven. But Dwight was ecstatically happy. He was exceptionally happy. And then Katy arrives, and the mood shifts again, but not in the same way it did with Roy, because I like Katy. We don't have a reason to dislike Katy. We have reasons to dislike Roy. Whereas Katy is just a seemingly nice person dating Jim. There's no reason why Jim shouldn't date her. So it's a strange shift in mood. I think I might not have felt that at the beginning. But as I've mentioned, I think I've mentioned recently, I am starting to take an interest in Jim and Pam. And I'm really keen to see what happens there. So I like Katy. Might be slightly biased because I love Amy Adams, but at the same time, she still spoiled the mood a little bit as well. But I really enjoyed this episode. It was a little bit different, a lot of different emotions. Dwight was fabulous, and I really enjoyed it. The Fire is definitely a pretty decent episode of The Office.